Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me again for another episode of Trucker Money. If you're new here, it's where we talk about money and finances outside of trucking. 6 days a week we talk about trucking. On that 7th day, it's all about what are you going to do with all that money you made. Got to prepare for retirement, prepare for life outside of trucking, passive income, all kinds of things like that. So thanks for joining me. Glad to have you. This will be for the week of October 12th through the 16th. It's kind of a quiet week, but kind of want to talk here today about getting started late. Some people have asked questions about, I'm not really saved or invested my entire life. Getting kind of started late in the game here. How do I go about that? So this week we'll do starting at 55. Maybe next week we'll do starting at 40. And the week after that, maybe starting at 25. So you can kind of get a different perspective of some different ways to do things based on your age and where you're starting from. And this is not financial advice, it's just my perspective and sharing my personal experiences for educational purposes and to motivate you, inspire you to do something for yourself. First of all, let's go over what happened this week as far as passive income, stuff like that, investments, what investments I added to and who paid me, stuff like that. A little bit off of YouTube again this week, not much. Kind of getting things rolling there, so definitely hit that thumbs up button. Helps out a lot. And a couple dollars from the Mudflap app. If you're not on that, check it out. Get some great fuel discounts with no fuel card required. $10 in free fuel after your first purchase. Use promo code DIYSemi. Now, who paid for the week? Well, first we got no increases or cuts in any kind of dividends for this week. I have a passive income portfolio of dividend stocks. That pays me every week of the year. This week, we got paid from ticker symbol O, which is Realty Income. Current yield of 4.65%. Fidelity Balance Fund paid. They paid twice, once with a dividend, and the second time was a long-term capital gain. So that was a pretty good chunk of change from them. They will pay again in December, so that's going to be kind of nice. I think it'll be another capital gain, if I'm not mistaken. York Water Company paid. Current yield of 1.6%. That's the first dividend I've gotten from them. It's kind of a new investment for me. And Stag Industrial paid their monthly payer. Current yield of 4.36%. Easy for me to say, right? They are a REIT, a real estate investment trust that invests in mostly in industrial type properties and warehousing, stuff like that. So if you're a truck driver, chances are at some point you've been to a Stag Industrial property. They also have Amazon warehouses. Didn't buy a whole lot this week. Picked up some additional Verizon. Kind of filled up my position there. I got as much as I want to have for now, so I probably won't be buying Verizon for some time now. So I'm glad to be done buying that. 3M, I added to 3M. I'll always be adding to 3M. They're one of my favorites. And picked up a little bit more Prudential. Their balance sheet's looking pretty decent right about now. So that's kind of all that happened for this week as far as income and what additional investments I made. Now let's talk about starting at 55. Boy, so there's good news and bad news with this. The bad news is you don't have as much time to compound that money as what you'd like to have. And I would say though at 55, statistically, you're kind of in your prime earning years, like 50 years old, right around there. So that could possibly enable you to set aside larger amounts of money, which is what you're going to have to do. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and lie to you. If people tell you starting at 55 and just save this much and you'll have plenty for retirement and this and that, that's stretching it a little bit. The truth is you're going to have to pound this out. You're going to have to put away a lot of money and be very aggressive with it, because if you want to retire at 65, that only gives you 10 years. Perhaps you might even have to work till 70 or maybe even a little later, depending on how much you can squirrel away. And the other good news is at 55, I would think that generally your expenses would be down a little bit. Maybe you have your house paid for by now. Maybe your vehicles are paid for. Kids should be out of the house, done with college maybe, or just kind of finishing up. So you're kind of getting to that point in your life where you're earning more and having less expenses. So that's good news. So I can only say what I would do if I was starting at 55, because not qualified to give advice. That's you need a licensed professional for that. So what I would do, first thing I would do is sit down with a CPA, spend a little bit of money, and find out exactly where I'm at. So we're not shooting from the hip here. No guessing games. We want to know exact. We want to kind of get a general idea from them about how much we're going to receive in Social Security based on our current income. They should be able to give you a pretty good estimate on that. And then sit down and devise a plan with them to really get a hold of your monthly expenses. Get the monthly payments down on different things. Maybe you can cut some expenses out of your life, extra cable bills and stuff like that. It really adds up, and you're probably gonna need it all if you're starting from zero. If you're starting with some money already, you're probably in a lot better situation. Next thing I would talk to them about is how can I minimize my debt? Is it a better idea to pay off extra on my house, or kind of put that money away for what I'm trying to achieve for retirement? 55, you're at a level of maturity where maybe it's a good time to start your own side business. A lot of businesses can be started for not a lot of money and provide you a good income. Perhaps so at 55 years old, you might start to be limited on physically what you can do. But in absence of some of that physical ability, at 55, you got a pretty good grasp of what's going on knowledge-wise. So don't be afraid to think about that. A lot of things you can do for starting your own business. Heck, if you need some ideas, just jump on the internet and search it out. Another resource I'd want to have, because this is going to take extensive planning and refiguring constantly. So find yourself some good online calculators, retirement calculators, investment calculators, so that even maybe once a month you want to sit down and see, okay, am I on track? And just rerun the numbers. Maybe you're ahead a little bit. And then you know in real time constantly if you need to make adjustments, what kind of adjustments you need to make. So starting from zero at 55, you don't have time to take on a ton of risk. So if I was going to start investing in, say, I definitely want income producing assets because I don't have time to wait out that growth. So the conventional wisdom would be at a later age, go ahead and invest in bonds. Well, I don't know. Personally, bonds are kind of off the table for me. They don't yield much. Okay, you need a pile of money to make that 2-3% add up to anything for spendable income. And the safety, the conventional wisdom has always said that bonds provide a certain amount of safety. Well, to me, that kind of all went out the window during 2008, during the financial crisis, when they did something unprecedented in history with the General Motors bonds. They wiped out the General Motors bondholders, pretty much in favor of the shareholders. That's unprecedented. That's not the way it's supposed to work. It pretty much wiped out 30-some years of law and precedent that bondholders get paid first. So knowing that going forward, that kind of, to me, eliminates some of that security that you would hope to get with bonds. Will that happen again in the future? I don't know. Who knows? But the precedent's kind of been set for it. Now, for me, if I was 55 looking for income, and I wanted like dividend-paying stocks, things like that, or ETFs, you can kind of accomplish the same thing here with a sector-weighted ETF or whatever. I would look towards a level of stability, so something with not a lot of volatility, such as tech. I wouldn't want much tech exposure. Very volatile. Okay. I would want things more like utilities. Utilities are kind of more well known for being somewhat stable. They have a little bit of a higher starting yield than a lot of your other stocks, but the growth in the dividend isn't as much. So being 55, you don't have time to wait out that growth in the dividend. You need a higher starting dividend. And that would be, utilities would be things like your energy companies like Duke Energy, Southern Company. I own both of those. And then water utilities. There's not a lot of volatility there. As far as like alternative energy, well, you get some exposure to that through your like Duke and Southern Company. Have a bit of alternative energy. What we're kind of getting at here is things that people will always need. Another thing along those lines would be real estate investment trusts, or REITs. We talk a lot here about realty income. There's healthcare REITs. There's a REIT to suit any purpose, any kind of real estate you want to invest in. But don't overlook physical real estate. If you have a chunk of money that you could take and invest in a property and generate $700, $800, $1,000 a month income for yourself, that goes a long ways towards solving a lot of your problems, and maybe you can leverage into another problem or a couple property or a couple properties and start yourself a nice little real estate business there. I would probably personally, for me, look to that first before I went another direction, because of the return based on your initial investment would probably be better. Storage facilities is a pretty good income generating real estate asset, and you can invest in them physically or through a REIT, such as there's different storage REITs, and then there's companies like Public Storage. They have a stock that has a pretty good yield on it, so that might be something that interests you. And then after those things, I would kind of go towards consumer staples. You're not going to get that 4 to 5% starting yield that you would get with like a REIT or a utility. But what I would do personally for me is I would identify some good consumer staple companies, such as like a Procter & Gamble, Colgate-Palmolive, maybe a Unilever, Clorox, and I would watch them constantly, and I would look for a good entry point. When the price comes down, that yield goes up. So you may buy, if Procter & Gamble gets cut down to $100, you may be buying it at nearly a 4% yield. That would be a pretty good entry point for what can be considered a fairly stable company. And once again, this is just what I would do. I would look for moderate yields, not low, not super high, because you want to just go looking for super high yields, because a lot of them are yield traps, and then the lower volatility to go with it. So I just wanted to throw out those ideas for you. The longer one waits, the harder it is to get something like this going, because time is essential. Definitely sit down with a professional. A CPA is a really good resource, and not only because they're familiar with taxes and numbers and stuff like that, but they can give you some really good ideas based on your average CPA sees many different kinds of people, so they know what other people are doing, and they're a good, wealthy resource of information. They can't obviously tell you who the person is and exactly what they're doing. There's confidentiality rules, but in general, they can generally give you some really good information. So just thought I wanted to throw some ideas at you there. Take care. Have a good day.